You're listening to The Bounding Box, where we talk about web development, geo development, and everything in between. All right, welcome to The Bounding Box. So today I'm joined by Anita Kemp. So Anita, please introduce yourself. Tell us what you do, who you are, what's your problem.
All right, thanks, Renee. Yeah, so I'm Anita. I am a product engineer on the Developer Experience team, and I also function as the documentation team lead. So if you don't know, the Developer Experience team is actually quite a bit larger than it was, even a couple of years ago. But we have a dedicated developer and like DevOps team within it, and then we have developer outreach and then the doc team as well. So we created and we maintain the developer's website. And then specifically for the doc team, we create the content and manage the mapping APIs and location services guide, and also all of the guides that cover how to integrate ArcGIS location services with the open source library. So, Esri Leaflet, MapLibre, things like that.
It's a lot. I don't think a lot of people realize just how big of a project the
Oh,
developer
yeah.
site is, right? Like even like I work on the Maps SDK stuff, but we have a small piece that we work on that kind of
Hmm.
we can work in isolation and do our thing, but there's like this whole larger ecosystem of stuff that just like is
Yeah.
massive and everything. So I've never built I've built our documentation for the Maps SDK, but I've never tried to build the whole thing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's a every I see the release notes every now and then, like, oh, the developer site's been updated today, so check it out, see what you got in there. But it's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we have to coordinate, across the SDK teams, right? So it's not only the JavaScript team, but it's also all of the native SDK teams as well, and just trying to figure out what like the best user experience is, right, across the site. So if a developer is on, say, the mapping APIs guide and wants to go to like .NET or the JavaScript, right, SDK, like there should be the same expectation, right?
And that whole workflow has really been streamlined, I think, a lot. It wasn't that a few years ago documentation was not great. It was just that if you were at one point in the doc somewhere and you wanted to say go from find something in the REST API, right?
Yeah.
It could be quite a task to go and do the searching, and you would get results from all these different pieces of the doc for a particular like endpoint, like how the different
Hmm.
APIs might use that one endpoint, but you never really could get directly to the one you wanted right away. And now it's so much easier. You go directly to the developer site. There's all these
Yeah.
different ways you can click through and find stuff. It's just so much easier to find things now.
Oh, yeah. No, that's really great to hear. Let's see. So in terms of my problem, so I don't actually know if you know too much about my background, but like I don't have a CS degree. I don't have a GIS background either. So I was actually trained as a linguist. So I
Oh
got like
wow.
my yeah, yeah. So but even now, like I still have that linguist mode on, and so whenever I'm talking to people, like you can ask Raul, like on our team or anybody, they're like, yeah, Anita always talks about language. And it'll always be like, oh, fascinating. Tell me more about like, the syntax of this language or like the declension system. And I have to be like, Anita, not everyone wants to hear about like,
That's great though, because that is
random.
such a
Yeah.
useful skill to have. It's just in communication alone, right? To be able
Hmm.
to talk to people, to make things clear for people. I mean, you're in the exact right position then.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's, I like looking back on it now, I totally agree with you because, I went to like a coding boot camp and, learned how to, do web development with JavaScript and .NET. And I was like, well, I don't really want to spend all of my time coding, but like everybody in like that cohort absolutely wanted to find like the code samples and the documentation for their projects. But then like we're complaining about, I don't know, the MDN docs, right? And then they never actually wanted to write the documentation, right? So
Wow.
I found like my niche where I'm like, I know the code and I can also write. So I'm going to stick with this. And
So,
the rest is history.
what was it that got you to Esri then? Out of like, I
Yeah.
guess wherever you could have gone with this particular skill set, which is very portable, right? I mean, how did you end up at Esri at all?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, all of our paths kind of meander, right? So So yeah, I went to school for linguistics, and I went to Oregon, so I have everything but a dissertation in
Wow.
linguistics.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there came a certain point in time where I'm like, I don't really want to stay in academia for a while. It wasn't as fulfilling, I guess. And so I was like, well, what I really like is doing the coding part of it. So in linguistics, we do a lot of, stats with R, for
Okay.
instance, or there's also this one program, it's called Prot, which is basically like you use it to like analyze vowel spacing and things like that. And that was really interesting. So that's how I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break from academia and decide what I want to do. And I decided I wanted to do web development. So yeah, we moved up to Portland.
So what does development for linguistics look like? You say you're using R and stuff like that. I mean, how
Mhm.
exactly is that done?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. One is to do straight like statistics, right? You can do your regression analysis, things like that. But there's also a field in linguistics called corpus linguistics. So imagine like a giant data set of like speech or text, right? Anything. And you can use R to start like going into the data set, like finding patterns, things like that, and extracting it. So we used a lot of R for data management and for statistics as well.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I,
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a lot of that. I didn't know that was a
Oh yeah.
particular field, right? That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, it was definitely fun. I mean, linguistics is one of those things that it's pretty broad. So, you have like the people who will go out and document like, a language in the middle of, I don't know, Papua New Guinea, right? But then you also have like the linguists who will only look at data sets like Twitter corpora, right? Or, you know, internet. I, what is it? I remember looking at one study where they were looking at like World of Warcraft, like text corpora, because it's there, like it's all there public, so you can mine the data for it. So it's very, very broad.
That's gotta be scary. I spent way too much time in World of Warcraft. I can only imagine what that data set would look like.
Oh yeah, there's some pretty interesting stuff.
Man, that's cool though.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I mean, I guess. Well, I didn't know that it was like a full field, like well, I guess in academia, there's a lot of different fields you get into, but that's
Hmm.
neat. And how do you
Yeah.
how do you apply that to the work you do now? Really, I mean, is it mostly just in how things should be written in terms of like flow
Hmm.
or something?
That's an interesting question. I think part of it is when you're a linguist, you're trained that there's two types of grammar, right? There's prescriptive grammar, which is like the academic, like you should say it like this, right? Versus descriptive grammar, which is more of how people talk, right? And so it's it's interesting being in this field or like as a doc writer because you have to at times adhere to that prescriptive side because that's what people expect, right? When reading. But at the same time, we have some liberty to say, well, really, like people don't say like I can't think of an example right now, but we can say like, okay, there's variation in how we talk about extents. For instance, we have extent, we have bounding box, right? And so we can kind of play with how we refer to things and justify it, saying, well, people really say bounding box a lot. And insert that into our docs so that it's easier to like translate between if you're a Mapbox developer versus an Esri developer. So I think in that way, I think my background kind of helps, but also it's just fun to, I don't know, read and work with language.
That is cool. I'm digging that. That's a lot of fun. You can
Yeah.
tell my language is not very good,
Oh
but
no, you're totally fine. Like I said, I mean, everyone's language is unique and everyone's language is valid, right? And that's what I try to tell people
that's awesome. I love that
all
one.
the time.
Everyone's language
Yeah.
is unique, but they're all valid. That's cool.
Yes.
Now you also do a
Yeah.
lot of tutorial videos, right? You do quite a few of those. I've seen you put a few of those out there. Pretty cool. How you liking those?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could do more of them because it's part of like our outreach incentive as well, is that, a lot of developers really like the visual side of things and just watching someone go through the tutorial instead of having to read like all the steps and then, copying and pasting, which, there's an audience for that too. So, yeah, we're definitely trying to do more of them. And it's fun, I think, like to translate what you've written into actual like steps.
That's cool. That's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Now, I did
Yeah.
want to ask you because I've seen this.
Hmm.
You mentioned this quite a bit on different
Yeah.
places. This new Places API, right?
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
I mean, I work at Esri and I still haven't used it. I'm not
Hmm.
too much familiar with it, but what is the new Places API? Let's start off with that.
Sure. Yeah. So the Places service, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's going to come out in beta in next month, and it's really targeted. So basically, we've had the geocoding service, right, that you could find places with, but now we have this new API that not only can you find POI, but you can also return like details about them. So, for example, I am walking down the street and I just want to find like a Starbucks. Well, you can do that. But then you can also find like the store hours of that Starbucks or the user ratings and all of that
Oh,
like
okay.
fine grained, yeah, it's like all of the fine grained detail that you want, but you couldn't get from like the geocoding service. So, like with the Places API, there's like two ways of working with it, right? There's one where, you know, you search nearby places. Like if you're on your phone and you just want to find like a Starbucks, right, within a certain radius from you. And then the other way is like searching within an extent. And then, finding like all of the hotels, say in Los Angeles, for example. But yeah, I think the main differentiator is the fact that you can get like that really granular details of each place. And it's also the amount of categories that there are and will be coming as well. It will be exponentially bigger.
That's cool because I know with the
Yeah.
geocoding API, you can ask for categories. The results you get back, I think right now you get back maybe like, well, you get the address,
Hmm.
you get a phone number, and if you're
Hmm.
lucky, you'll get a website URL. And I think those are like
Mm.
really the only three things you'll get. Well, the name of the business too. Um,
Sure.
but I guess on the category side, are they more generalized? Like, because right now I know that categories you can do like, oh, there's so many subcategories of
Yeah. Yeah.
subcategories and stuff. But is it just a very like a normalized set of categories for the Places API, so it's a little easier to use?
Um. Well, I would say that there's also a lot of categories. So,
Okay.
we have like there's like 10 general categories, right? Like arts and entertainment and, you know, dining and drinking, right? That's like the main categories. And you can search. Like, each category has a unique ID and you can use that ID to do a general search like that. But if you are really wanting like that targeted search, you can do that as well. Say you only want like, I don't know, Italian restaurants or like French
Ah,
restaurants, but
okay.
like Provence style restaurants, you can search for
Yeah.
that too. So it's like really, really, again, I like using this word granular in the way they in the way they've organized their categories.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So I guess based on how you want to
Hmm.
set your app up, something like that, you can really customize it to whatever needs you have for a particular app, right? So
Yeah.
that's neat.
Yes. For sure. Yeah. So you can either search by the category or you can do like a complete like keyword search and, find like the places that have the word like cafe in their name or that fall within that category of like cafes and dining and drinking. So
That's cool.
yeah, it's
How would
really
people sign
fun.
up for that for the beta next month? Is that going to be just in
Hmm.
the I don't know, is there a beta sign up site or is it just via developer site somewhere?
I don't have the details about that as yet, but as of now, you will need to have an ArcGIS platform account to actually access the Places service. So, yeah, so you can get a developer account for free if you go to the developers.arcgis.com website. And yeah, and then we will have a specific scope that you can set for your API key to start playing with the service.
Oh, that's cool. I dig that.
Yeah,
Can I start
yeah, yeah.
using it now? Can I get early beta?
You'll have to talk to the team behind that one, I think.
Man, okay, okay. I'll play. I'll see what I
Yeah,
can wiggle out of those folks.
yeah, yeah.
But
But I'm really excited. for it.
That's neat. And I guess in general too, you just you work on a lot of stuff for like developer side, everything like that. I mean, how would you
Mhm.
recommend users that are new to the platform get started?
Sure. Yeah, I would say the first thing is to get an ArcGIS account. So the easiest is getting that platform account, which is just a free developer account. It comes with a free tier, so you get, a number of free base map tiles and geocodes and things like that per month. So once you sign up for that account, you get an API key and you can scope it to access different services. And then you can just start playing with the SDKs. And if you want to learn more about location services and, you know, how to get started even more, I guess, is to go to the mapping APIs and location services guide
That's cool.
for
And
it.
like you said, I think you
Yeah.
said before, we have a lot of different guides and things for like Leaflet or Map
Mm-hmm.
Libre,
Yep.
and of course the Maps SDK for JavaScript. That kind of already has like built-in stuff on top of all these different
Yeah.
services and everything. But you're not limited. You can pretty much use it wherever you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Back end, front end. Don't even need a map necessarily, right? I mean, you can just kind of
Right.
create a dashboard of stuff if you really wanted to,
Yeah.
using all these things. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that was like a really good thing that happened is like with the release of platform was the fact that I mean you can consume our location services in these open source guides. Like there's nothing hindering you from
Yeah,
that. And the fact that we have like, ArcGIS REST.js to help developers, access the REST APIs is I think it's really nice.
that's fun. All
Yeah.
right, yes, I want to be a bit
Yeah.
respectful of your time, but
Yeah.
before I let you go, you got any tips or tricks for people that you want to shout out? And it doesn't have to be anything geo related or anything like that. Anything at all you want to tell people.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I think the first one is the fact that we have a feedback widget on the developer site. So, whenever you click the button and, provide some feedback, we, as in me and the doc team, do read it. And, we update the site weekly, like you mentioned. So, we can make some changes based on feedback. And we'd love to hear how you guys use our doc. Let's see, another tip or trick. Mm, I don't have another one, but I would like to know from you, what is your favorite like thing about language? Like
Oh,
anything. Yeah.
and I guess this is kind of, I mean, just how it can differ so much, but you just kind of understand what people are saying most of the time, right? So,
Yeah.
like, I grew up in LA, I grew up in East LA, and there's a lot
Right.
of slang that we've got
Sure.
out there. And I have most of it I don't use anymore. It's kind of
Okay.
like gone out, but every now and then if I even get excited or something like that, I get into it and it'll come out.
Yeah.
Or even like Spanglish, a lot of these like
Yeah.
broke span,
Mm-hmm.
but other people still understand what I'm saying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't. It's kind of weird sometimes. You just kind of know based on maybe tone or familiarity with some other words, something like that, of what they're getting to. And like a lot of slang words are kind of like I'd say like it's a Spanish word, but it doesn't really have a real Spanish meaning. But
Mm-hmm.
you'd understand if you heard it in English. Most of them are words I can't
Yeah.
really repeat, but people know what you're getting to, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's interesting. And you probably you get that a
Yeah.
lot from like other languages too. And I've heard other people like in French stuff like that. If someone if now a
Mm-hmm.
couple of French speaking people, even when they're speaking and they say something just by the tone, you get an idea of like, yeah, I understand what you're getting at there.
Oh yeah. 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 I mean, I have similar experiences because I live in Albuquerque, right? So we also have like a lot of bilingualism going on. Yeah, I think like yeah, tone and just like the gestures are just fascinating because
Yeah.
we use so much of like non-linguistic cues to
Mhm.
actually understand what's going on, right? Yeah.
I think when it
Yeah.
was funny when I was doing a lot of the plenary stuff at Esri, and then I was doing the
Yeah.
Palm Springs and European Dev Summit. I was very
Yeah.
much with my hands a lot, and a lot of the feedback was like, "Can you tone down the handness
Oh,
that you've
really?
got there because it's a little bit much." I was very like, "Whew," like this and that, and they're like, "That's kind of a bit. Just keep it a little below your eye level with the gestures, and we're okay." So I was like, okay, I get you. I understand what you're saying. Just don't get carried away.
Yeah. Yeah, but I remember there was someone in my PhD program who was studying gesture and the fact that like it is so important because we use it just to like emphasize, what we're saying or it carries a lot of meaning and like people just don't think about it sometimes just how much I mean I'm using gestures right now
Yeah,
to like yeah to emphasize a point or just to like talk about something so
that's cool. That's a lot of
yeah
fun.
yeah
All right, well, thank you very
cool
much. I appreciate it. And I'll be talking to you next time.
yeah cool thanks Renee.
Thank you for listening to the Bounding Blocks today. Please subscribe for more content.